Welcome to Section 2.2, Part 4. This is the 16th session of the CISSP exam prep series. This part continues risk management by getting into the math and the taxonomy of controls. In this session, we'll make safeguard selection concrete. We'll answer several questions. How do you calculate whether a safeguard is worth it? What else matters when choosing a countermeasure? How are controls grouped by category? And what are the functional types of controls you must recognize? Why does this matter beyond the exam? Because you will be asked to defend not just what you protect, but how you spend to protect it. Picture a hospital network evaluating a new intrusion prevention system. Leadership will want to know it reduces loss by more than it costs. And auditors will want to know your controls span the right categories and cover prevention, detection, and recovery. This session gives you the language and the math to answer both. How do you calculate whether a safeguard is worth it? By comparing loss before and after. A good safeguard lowers how often a threat is realized, and sometimes how much damage each event does. That produces a smaller annual loss expectancy with the safeguard than without it. Call the original annual loss expectancy the pre-safeguard figure and the improved one the post-safeguard figure. You also estimate the annual cost of the safeguard, which is more than the sticker price. It includes purchase, implementation, maintenance, training, and lost productivity. Picture the full yearly cost of owning a guard dog, not just the price of the puppy. What is the actual cost-benefit formula? It is refreshingly simple. Take the pre-safeguard annual loss expectancy, subtract the post-safeguard annual loss expectancy, then subtract the annual cost of the safeguard. The result is the value of that safeguard to the organization. If it is negative, the safeguard costs more than it saves and is not financially responsible. If it is positive, that number is your annual savings. And when several safeguards show a positive result, the one with the largest value is the most cost-effective. Remember, though, that dollars are not the only factor. Sometimes you spend more on a safeguard to avoid legal liability. What else matters when choosing a countermeasure? Several practical qualities beyond the math. The cost should be less than both the asset value and the benefit it provides. A good countermeasure solves a real, identified problem rather than a fashionable one. Its protection should not depend on secrecy, so it holds up even when attackers know it exists. It should be testable, consistent across users and systems, and tamper-proof, with overrides limited to privileged operators. It should need little human intervention and offer fail-safe options. Above all, it must support a genuine business need. Picture buying a tool because it solves your actual problem, not because the sales demo was slick. How are controls grouped by category? Into three families that work in layers. Administrative controls are the policies and procedures, things like hiring practices, background checks, data classification, and security training. Technical controls, also called logical controls, are the hardware and software mechanisms, like encryption, firewalls, access control lists, and authentication methods. Physical controls protect the facility and real-world objects, like guards, fences, locked doors, and cameras. These layer into defense in depth. Policy forms the outer ring. Technical controls guard against logical attacks, and physical controls stop real-world intrusion. Picture a castle with written rules, a locked gate, and a stone wall. Now let's map the functional control types. Beyond category, every control also has a job. The same fence can serve more than one purpose, so these types overlap. The goal is a natural rhythm: prevent what you can, detect what slips through, and correct or recover from what causes harm, all reinforced by deterrence and direction. Keep that rhythm in mind as we walk through the 7 functional types one by one. What is a preventive control? One that stops unwanted activity before it happens. Preventive controls are your first line, aiming to block a threat from ever succeeding. Examples include locks, authentication, encryption, firewalls, separation of duties, and security training. Picture a locked door that simply refuses to open for the wrong person. But remember, no control is perfect. Any of them can be bypassed, misconfigured, or overloaded, which is exactly why you never rely on a single layer. What is a detective control? One that discovers activity after it occurs. Detective controls operate after the fact, spotting problems that prevention missed. Examples include security cameras, motion detectors, audit trails, intrusion detection systems, and mandatory vacations. Picture a review of access logs that reveals someone entered a restricted room at 3 a.m. The control did not stop the entry, but it made sure you know it happened. Detection is what turns a silent breach into a known incident you can respond to. What are corrective and recovery controls? The controls that restore normal operation. A corrective control modifies the environment to fix a problem right after an incident, like anti-malware quarantining a virus or a system rebooting to clear an attack. A recovery control extends that idea to bigger damage, restoring resources and capabilities after a serious violation. Examples include backups and restores, server clustering, system imaging, and alternate processing sites for disaster recovery. Picture a spring that pulls a door shut and relocks it automatically. Corrective handles the small stumble, recovery handles the hard fall. What are deterrent, directive, and compensating controls? The three that round out the set. A deterrent control discourages violations by convincing people not to act, like warning banners, visible guards, or security cameras. A directive control channels behavior toward compliance, like posted policies, exit signs, and supervision. A compensating control is a backup option that supports or substitutes for another control. Picture a backup that restores a file when a preventive control failed to stop its deletion, or a disaster recovery site that stands in when fire suppression fails. Compensating controls fill the gaps the primary controls leave open. Why does compliance testing tie all this together? Because a control you never verify is a control you cannot trust. Compliance testing confirms that your systems actually meet the laws, regulations, standards, contracts, and internal policies you claim to follow. Auditing is how you check it, making sure every required element of your security solution is deployed and working as intended. Picture a fire drill that proves the alarms and exits genuinely function, rather than assuming they will. Compliance is a core concern of security governance, and it shapes which risk responses you can defensively choose. So let's bring it together. You justify a safeguard by comparing pre- and post-annual loss expectancy against its annual cost, then favouring the largest positive value. Beyond math, a good countermeasure is testable, tamper-proof, and tied to a real business need. Controls group into administrative, technical, and physical categories layered as defense in depth, and functionally they prevent, detect, correct, recover, deter, direct, and compensate. Verify it all through compliance testing and auditing. The MCQs covering all the topics and concepts from this session are available on rucloud.com. Practice the chapter-specific MCQs before moving on to the next session. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions or feedback, post a comment below or email us. I will see you in the next session.